Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burnettwork. Welcome to Positive Fandom. I'm your host, Artem, and today we have with us STUBBLE MCSHAVE. We're back again for another review of The Wheel of Time. It is actually season 2. I got to change that. Episodes 4, 5, and 6. STUBBLE, how are you today?
Oh, I'm pretty good, pretty good. Looking forward to talk to you about Wheel of Time.
Yes, I'm excited. There's a lot to talk about over these last episodes. And I know you heard me listening to the last episode again because there is so much going on with the Wheel of Time this season, STUBBLE. We're looking at episode 4. The last time that we were here, we hadn't gotten up to episode 4. But now, after everything that's happened, episode 4 is very interesting because we find that Moraine is has completely isolated herself from Lan, and we've kind of known them to be a unit to work together, and that's not happening anymore. So it is very interesting to see that she's kind of working independently, and she's gone to her family, so to speak, and has sought refuge there and trying to do more work in arranging things. But she seems to have the situation where she can't get things done the way she'd like to. And certainly I never guessed that I would ever expect Moraine would be asking Logain to instruct Rand to fight. Is that something that you were surprised by?
Uh, Once again, what did you say at the end there?
Were you surprised that Moraine goes to Logain and
Right.
asks him to instruct Rand? Were you surprised that she did that?
Well, kind of, but I've watched some of the behind the scenes stuff beforehand, so I knew what was coming, more or less. But it was certainly a difference from what I know from the books. So and I think that she has her plans for what they should do, and she's making it happen. And we see later on that he gets some help in a later episode, even if it doesn't help him as much.
This is true. And I think, if anything, it does tell Rand what he's up against. Rand does seem to be, once again, so incredibly in the dark about everything that's happening to him. And things are happening to him at an alarming rate. And I don't know whether he is going to be able to handle all this. I mean, this would be enough to drive me, really just not be able to handle what's going on. But as long as Logain is around, it feels as if, he could learn something from him. But Logain himself is in trouble because he had his power stripped from him. And, Logain can be a very dangerous character. Moraine kind of promised him this dagger that was found. And I'm not quite sure whether Logain should get that or whether she's ever really going to give it to him. But certainly that is something that to think about, especially when it comes to Rand. Rand doesn't really like. It seems as if the Dark One is trying to. When I say the Dark One, I mean the Forsaken One. Really wants to try and control him, but it doesn't seem like anybody can control Rand. I feel like Rand is sort of this character that even though people are trying to push and pull against him, he's just going to do whatever he wants. What do you think, Stubble?
Well, he's kind of stubborn, but we can see that he's pretty much manipulated by Lanfear, or by Selene, I should say,
Yes.
before we learn who she is. And just for the record, Selene is the name of a moon goddess in our world. So took the name because she's the daughter of the night, So,
Yes.
but no, he isn't led. Rand isn't led. He resists everyone who tries to push him in any way. But she certainly manipulates him before the reveal who she is.
Yes, certainly. And one of the biggest surprises for me in episode 4 was the bombshell, guys. Of course, there are spoilers. But one of the biggest bombshells to me was the fact that we find out one of the Aja, the red Aja, Liandrin, is actually a dark Aja. She's a bad guy. She tricks or convinces Nynaeve and Egwene that the only way to rescue their friends is to go to this area, this town. But she tells them, you guys, you'd have to sneak out of the tower, and then you would be able to come back. And knowing that they will do it regardless of how dangerous it is, she captures them. Were you surprised? Is she that character in the book? And what did you think about her development as this as a dark friend, a black Aja, I guess is what you would call her?
Well, in the books, it's pretty clear who she is from the start, that she's a bad guy.
Oh,
But and she's much more developed in the series to be, more of a whole full-fledged character. She's more of a side character in the books. But I wasn't surprised what was waiting. But if they fooled you, they did their job, the writers. So yeah, and the how they fool the girls is similar, not exactly the same, but similar to how it's in the books. There are different people involved to some degree, but that's pretty close to it. And the handing over to the bad guys that's happened in episode 5, I think. That's very close to what's depicted in the books. Not word for word, but pretty close.
Yeah, it is a quite shocking revelation. I was not expecting that. I liked that happened, and certainly we do see that some of the other Aja are also getting signs that things are awry. I know that Alana finds out more or less that that Lanfear, of course, Celine, the Forsaken, has returned or will return through some kind of a prophecy, which is very interesting. And while at the same time, there's another Aja who goes to the tower to see the girls, to see the girls there. But of course, the girls are not there because Liandrin has now sold them to I think it's called the Sean. Is it Seanchan?
Yeah,
The
Seanchan.
Seanchan. And unfortunately, the Seanchan actually put their channeling women into bondage as Damani. So, any woman who ends up on this in the hold of the Seanchan will probably or most likely become a Damani, which is essentially just like a one power slave. You have to do whatever they ask
Yeah,
you to do.
and even worse than a slave, actually, because you can't have your own thoughts really. You can't make any decisions at all for yourself.
Yeah, it is quite demoralizing, and it's almost as if you don't exist except to just use the one power. And I did equate it to that other character from I guess the Pitch Black series, the Necromancers, where they use this one character to search, and all their entire existence they just like wear this big like glass magnifier on their face, and all they're led around like a dog, and all they're used for is to search areas, to search for things, and that's their entire existence. Like they're not even separate from the glass, like it's part of their headpiece, and they just keep it on all the time. And it kind of reminded me of that because of the level of degradation that they put the wearer through.
Yeah.
um, so another kind of really interesting part about this is that uh, Perrin,
And Varen, exactly, as I was just going to say her name, but continue.
oh, okay, Perrin is also on his own journey. Right when he,
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Varen, the
well,
Aes
Perrin
Sedai.
is the other Aja who visits the
Yeah,
tower, right?
she's of the brown Aja. You can think of them as the librarians, the scholars, the finding things in ancient manuscripts, and really, and she meets two of her colleagues, two of her sisters, and one of them, I think her name was Jessica, is played by one of the girls that was in Harry Potter.
Oh,
The
okay.
the the Asian looking person. Uh,
Yes.
yes, she was the love interest of Harry Potter. So she goes from one school of magic to another. You know, so
It seems quite appropriate. And certainly what she finds is that she decides to visit the White Tower. And she's the one who's, while she's there, um, she suddenly, discovers or comes to the conclusion that the Black Aja do exist and
yeah,
that it's, it may be difficult times ahead. However, everybody who's been left in charge since the Amarylline seat or, the Amarylline is not there, doesn't want to hear anything she has to say. They just want it to be business as usual. It's a very somewhat bureaucratic system, and they don't want to have anybody rock the boat or anything. Although they were fine with letting Nynaeve take the arch test, right?
yeah,
But that now I realize it's because Liandrin needed to find out how powerful she was before she turned her in to the Seanchan. So there was an ulterior motive there. It wasn't because she wanted to see Nynaeve do well. It was because she wanted to see how far Nynaeve would go. At least that's how I'm interpreting that part for
yeah.
her. Um,
I'm interpreting it that it plays out a little bit different in the show than from what I know, but I interpret it in the show as she wanted to bring her over to her side and have her be a sister pretty fast. So she had you know gained standing by bringing one of the most powerful uh, to the Black Aja, so to speak.
Right, exactly. I mean, now that let's say if hypothetically, and of course we realize that something happened that at least right now doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Um, I think, I think when she approached Nynaeve in the tower, she thought she was going to be able to talk her into her side. And
Right.
and I think that once she realized that it was impossible, there's no way that Nynaeve is going to fall for this. She's like, well, maybe she'd be better off being a Damani in with the Seanchan than anything else, or whatever they had planned for her going forward. And it is
Yeah.
very interesting what we see in the episodes to come because, like I said, that was the last thing that I expected to see.
Yeah.
Incidentally,
It also seems that Ishamal, the Forsaken, probably gave her orders to do, take them there.
absolutely. And there's a lot that the Forsaken and Ishmael are doing behind the scenes to try to manipulate things so that that they're kind of like the ones who are responsible for this action or that action to gain power, to gain influence and favor, I guess, with the Dark One. Is that correct, Stubble?
Uh, he did what? Once more.
It seems like Celine
Yeah.
and Ishmael are working separately to maneuver and to change things around so that if something turns out that it's good for, let's say, the dark side, so to speak, they'll gain favor with the dark one.
Yes. Yes. But they both have their own reasons for it. They both serve the Dark One, but they don't have the same goal. Sh- Lanfear has the goal. She's the jilted lover. She's the uh, you know the psycho girlfriend. Uh, there's more to her than that, but they play up that part of her.
Yeah.
And the Shamal, he's the true believer. He's the one that I want the world to stop. I want the whole thing to end.
Interesting. Certainly, between the two of them fighting for dominance, it is an interesting struggle. And of course, Rand once again. It seems like he's doing great with Celine, and when I say doing great, she's pushing him, and he's just going along for the ride. I don't really think Rand understands what's going on to him overall around him. I think that Moraine did explain a lot, let's say that past year or how much of a time they were together, but there's so much he doesn't understand that whenever anything happens, like for example, when he burned down the inn, he was like, oh yeah, I guess I did that. And
Yeah,
it's kind of like,
and it's uncertain what really happened there.
Yeah, he's very confused, and
Yeah,
then when he is with Celine and that fade pops up, um am I saying the correct thing? Yes. Yeah. Rand suddenly gets attacked by a fade,
yeah,
and he defeats the fade, and however, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this also the part where yeah, he defeats a fade and he doesn't even know how he did this? Like, it's very strange.
yeah. It's
Stubble.
you know, intuitive. He doesn't really know what happens, and yeah, he can't control it and he can't direct it. Really, it just happened by more or less chance.
And I don't know if this is true or not, but it seems like somehow Moraine gets back into the picture. And am I saying the right episode where she goes ahead and attacks Celine at this point to get Rand, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's the last thing that happens in episode 4, more or
Okay,
less.
yes. Okay, so that's where that's so I am saying the correct thing.
You know, we have the big reveal of both Liandrin and Lanfear in the end of episode 4.
Mhm. And
So
it is really funny because now here's another, of course, Moraine was the first person to guide Rand to where she felt he needed to go. But even now, there's another person who's sort of tugging at him, and of course, she was tugging at him before. It's just that this is even more exaggerated, in a sense, because he interprets any sort of attack towards the Forsaken One, towards Celine, as being a permanent mark. And I think Moraine was like, oh no, this is only just
yeah.
temporary, this is just so we can run away.
This is one of the big departures between the books and the TV show. In in the books, Lanfear isn't, run through by a blade or anything in that point in the story. And the Forsaken they don't have here they have regenerate by the help of the Dark One's power. In the book series, they have something called transmigration, which is that their soul is put into a new body if they die.
Oh,
So, but that's in a TV series, it doesn't work. Get a new actor to portray the same character because So instead, they go with the regeneration thing. And if you watch closely, you can see in her eyes there's like blue flecks in her eyes while the healing, or what we should call it, happens. And that's an indication that let's call it the Dark One's powers are at work.
yeah, well, it's impressive because it looked like she was killed, and Rand believed that she was dead, but Moraine had to tell him, look, I'm sorry, but this creature is not even close to being dead.
Yeah,
They're very much alive, and we don't have a whole lot of time. And they do kind of get away, but they don't fully get away because one of the characters decides not to ride the horses, or take these horses as far as they were told to, um,
yeah.
which is
Well, they rode on until they were exhausted, and then they took a rest. And the guy before, it wasn't nice for him, his head exploding and everything.
yeah, that was uncomfortable. And so, it is very interesting. As I said, it seems like Rand can get no rest. I don't know how he's handling all of this, but he seems to just be going with this. A year ago, his life was so pleasant. And certainly now, this is, the wildest ride of his life, I think,
Yeah,
that he could have ever imagined.
yeah.
Um,
Not having any rest or any sleep is something that's drawn from the third book. They incorporate elements from the third book in this season, and there he doesn't dare to fall asleep, so he's more or less crazy from lack of sleep in the third book. So they have pulled some of that into this, but not exactly.
yeah, and that, I guess, when he sleeps, it makes him susceptible to having dreams from the
Yes.
Forsaken One, and he doesn't want to have any of that because I've seen some of those dreams and they're not pleasant. So,
Now you are totally at their mercy. What
yeah,
happens?
I mean, it's not anything I think anybody would want to experience. So when we get to episode 5, Stubble, we get a sense. It's called Dumani, and of course, after this episode, we get quite a um wake-up call about what that means. Of course, we've seen this Dumani relationship there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more complicated than that, because I know that it's called, is it Adam? Adam was sort of
Yeah,
this
Adam.
Adams, thank you, is this way that they manage to control
Yeah.
any woman who channels, and then for life, Stubble, it looks like it's for life. Like, what an interesting thing. We find out that that was something that was created, at least in this in the television series. They said that an Aja from the tower created this
Yes.
this horrible bondage. Meanwhile, Perrin, I kind of like Perrin's journey, because he's not like everyone else. At least it doesn't feel that way. He now has saved a woman by the name of, I think it's Avinda, and
Avienda.
Avienda, she feels indebted to him. And I think it is really interesting, because now he has someone who, you know, according to their lore, you saved me, I'm indebted to you, I'm here to help you. And I think Perrin's journey is seems somewhat more wholesome to me, even though I don't know if because of what he is, it means that he has a doomed future. But I like his character so much. He has these relationships with people that no one else can really see. However, it was made clear to him that he needs to stay away from channelers, because they are distrustful of his people. Is this true, Stubble?
Um, Perrin, you mean?
Yes,
Oh,
Perrin.
yes, yes. But you know, the Aes Sedai don't like things that they don't understand. So they think that it's probably connected to the power in some way. And you know, you don't want the Aes Sedai poking and prodding at you to find out what it is all about. So he he better stay away from them. You know, unless he wants to spend his time in in a cell or in an examination room and be prodded about or something like that. So it's better to avoid them. But in episode 5, there were a lot of new terms, a lot of world building was introduced, and I wrote up some of them here.
Oh, good.
So I thought that I would quiz you a little bit.
Oh, no. Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so they mentioned Tarmon Gaiden, and
What
that
do you mean? What is it?
Tarmon Gaiden.
Yes, that's part of the, isn't that part of the Adam?
No, it's their word for the last battle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Tarmon Gaiden sounds a bit like Armageddon.
Yes, it does.
Yes, and Telaran Riyadh. That's that's the world of
That's the part
dreams.
of the Adam.
No, that's the world of dreams.
The world. Okay, okay. So when for example, Rand is in the world of dreams, it seems like the Dark One has power over everyone in the world of dreams, or something like that.
Let's say that they know how to control the world of dreams, but other people could also control the world of dreams, but they have been experts at it at a time when everyone was much more capable of all of this stuff. But I won't quiz you on anything more, but I will just mention some of the things that was brought up in episode 5.
Yes.
So Tarmon Gaidon, Teleran Riyadh, I already mentioned. Compulsion. The Black Aja was brought up as a concept. And Damane, Maraf Damane, Suldam, and Adam. And those are all Seanchan related.
And the compulsion has some, why is that significant to the Black Aja?
Well, because you take over someone's mind more or less. Not really, but you more or less force them to do things and sometimes forget what they have done. And it's an evil thing and not allowed under the oaths.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
And Damane, that's least one, means least one. And Maraf Damane means those who must be leashed. So Maraf the Aes Sedai are Mer of the Money. Everyone who's not leashed, who will have the one power, those are Mer of the Money. Of course, they must be leashed.
They must be controlled. Who is the
Yes.
person who controls the Damani?
Well, the High Lords and the Emperors of the Seanchan.
Okay.
So the Emperors have a lot of Seanchan, but the Empress is not on this continent. So at least not at this point in time. But it's very hierarchical. There's a hierarchy to the Seanchan, and very high status. The symbols like the nails and all of that stuff, which are a little bit different from the books, but the same concept is there.
Yeah, I did notice that there was a hierarchy, and certainly it was shocking to see in this episode that Egwene becomes leashed.
Yeah.
And the product, I guess the item, it looks like it's literally like something from bondage, like a collar. That's what it looks like. And the person who controls it has this unusual, I guess it fits on your arm. There's like another.
Yes, that's something that they've done for the show, but the concept is the same. In the books, they are more holding a leash that's fastened around their. No, it's on the wrist, and the other is fastened around the necks. Here you have it's fastened around the wrist as well, but it's a bigger thing. It's easier to see on the camera.
Well, Liandrin thinks that she's giving the 3 girls to the Seanchan, but it turns out that 2 of them escaped. Nynaeve and Elaine managed to get away. I'm still trying to figure out how that happened. It seems like they slipped away almost, Stubble, from a regime that is very dominant and aggressive. But we did see that horrible event where Egwene is leashed, and it is just so hard to watch her struggle. Not just in episode 5, but especially episode 6, knowing what was ahead of her and how this was going to affect her. It's just really hard to watch. So they certainly do get their point across of what can be done to a person who channels if they don't comply. But we also see the horn again, this horn that was stolen, and Ishmael decides to turn it over to the Seanchan. Why didn't he keep it for himself?
Well, I'm not sure really. He could have done that, but maybe he wants to, create chaos, perhaps. I don't know. I'm not sure about the motives in the show, really.
And oddly enough, he hands it over. I don't know whether it scored him any brownie points with the Seanchan or not. I have no idea whether this is going to work out for Ishmael or whether things are going to go good for him. But he seemed to want to be able to say that, great, we got you this. Don't you value us? Aren't I special? Ironically, we've talked earlier in this review about how when you sleep, when you're dreaming, the Dark One, and I guess anyone who serves the Dark One, can have control over you. And that's exactly what Moiraine asks Rand to do, right, Stubble?
Yes. If I just can go back to the Horn of Valyr, just to clarify one thing. In the books, I hate to go back to that, but in the books, it's Perrin is not under the thumb of Ishamael in the same way. So it's Perrin's decision to give it to the Seanchan there. In the show, he's directed by Ishamael in a different way. So I don't really know what Ishamael's motives are. Right. And back to your new question that I've forgotten.
No, it was just I was just noticing that at a time when we were talking about how vulnerable you are while you're sleeping. I think it's
Yeah.
ironic that that's what Moraine is having Rand do. But I think part of the reason why I think um, this is happening, or at least why she's asking him to do this, is because she still doesn't have her powers, right, Stubble?
Yeah, and that's a that's a new storyline that's, I think, gone on a little bit too far. I think it could have been resolved earlier. Um, and she has no other way out really. So they have to try and trick or something Lanfear, I suppose. And I don't know who manipulates who. I think it will see that in the coming episodes.
Yeah, we certainly will see that in the coming episodes. It's certainly very confusing. And, clearly, even though he is kind of transported to this world where he finally gets to confront Celine, because Rand's relationship with Celine is a little bit more complicated because he's told her that he loves her. How
Yeah.
on earth, what on earth is going on here?
That Rand loves her, or what did you say?
Yes, that to hear Rand say that he loves Celine was
Yeah.
quite shocking. What did you
Well,
make?
well, I think I think he really felt something for her before the reveal in episode 4, and I think something of that still lingers in the back of his head. It was a good thing they had, even if he was manipulated all the time. And but what did you think about Rand on the wheel? What that something that appealed to you in any way?
Yes, I did like seeing him on that wheel. It's the second time she's tied him up. Remember, she tied him
Yeah,
up earlier in the season, and
yeah,
now he's back up on the wheel again.
yeah,
And I'm thinking to myself, she seems to like to play with him a little bit. And
yeah,
I don't think he hates it. I don't think he hates any of this. I think that he's young and this might be the first time that he's ever found himself in this situation, but I don't think he hates it. I think this is something that he's just going along with for the ride. And this has been one of the most unusual experiences of his life because he is the dragon. And
yeah,
I think that Ishmael and Celine want to have be able to have the feather in their cap saying that they can control the dragon, or,
yeah.
or that they're close to the dragon. But for the dragon to say that they love you, I don't think that Ishmael is ever going to have Rand say that he loves him. Like, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
No, no. But there was that dream sequence where Lanfear was fooling Ishamael. Ishamael thought, or it looked like it was Rand in the bed, and then it was revealed that it was Lanfear. So there was that thing. And I was taken aback before the reveal. I thought, what are they doing now? But no, it was okay.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It certainly was a surprise to see all of that happening. And
mm,
however, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about Rand. I don't feel sorry for him necessarily. Um, I know this sounds strange. I mean, shouldn't I feel bad for him because he's the dragon and that he's supposed to be the person who's going to be responsible for the end of
yeah.
everything?
Well, that's one of the big differences, and one why I feel the show may have lost something, because in the book series we see very much from Rand's point of view, almost all the first book and big parts of the second book, and we get to know him really well, and we get to root for him, and we get to cheer for him. In the show, he's not that likable, really. We don't really cheer for him, even if we should. Uh, and the bad guys are much more interesting on screen than what he is. So I think they really, one thing they should have done was, connect us to the main character more than what they have done. And also, if we go back to when Moraine said to Rand that he could go to sleep, or he could do whatever he needed to do, that was the first time that Moraine trusted someone else than herself. Really, he hasn't taken orders from anyone, or let anyone do whatever they wanted. Everyone had to do what she said,
Right.
and this was the first time that she gave away some of that power to him to make his own decision.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, and, I think that she's gonna be if they continue for the rest of this season where she doesn't have where she's stilled, so to speak, and if this is gonna
Yeah,
be her for the rest of the
and
season.
I don't think she is stilled. I think she believes that she is stilled,
Oh.
but I don't think that she is stilled.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Um, well, if let's say if she continues to believe that she is stilled, I think that she's going to keep finding herself at the mercy of others, which she doesn't like. When she went back home to her familial estate, she didn't like even seeing her family. I thought she was incredibly rude to her family. She doesn't want to have anything to do with them. She found out that her nephew was going to be married to the queen, but is that her nephew or is it somebody else?
no, they are related. Nephew, yeah, I think because they are both damn dreads.
Okay.
They're all three are damn dreads, and Lamb and damn dread. It was the king earlier who it was he who started the Aiel War 20 years earlier, and he did that by cutting down a tree, a sacred tree that that Aiel had given him, and they thought that that was a big sin, and the whole Aiel War was to go and more or less kill the king. So they invaded the whole continent for 4 years, I think. Uh, well, that was a bit of a sidetrack.
No, it's not a sidetrack because we do actually see a scene with a tree. It's very funny that
Yeah,
you should mention that.
yeah,
It turns out that the Ogier is asked to sing, and he is very reluctant to do this.
yeah. It's more or less a sacred thing for him, and they are seeing it as a carnival trick, more or less.
And as he's performing this beautiful song and the tree is literally growing, the person who asked him to do it is very alarmed by the attention that it's getting and
Yeah,
doesn't seem to like what he's doing. um it's interesting, the Seanchan leaders and as you said, hierarchy, they don't like anyone taking attention away from them.
no,
And Ogier is so unique and different. He's totally going to take attention away from you like every time. But we
yeah,
do see that he's working with another gentleman to try and get the horn back.
yeah.
But they're also
That is Ingtar. He's one of the Shianaran soldiers that were riding with Perrin earlier, who
absolutely,
was
and
captured.
he was captured along with the Ogier, and they were forced to pledge allegiance to the Seanchan. And it has been an adjustment for them. They are not enjoying it. Nobody's enjoying it. It's
Yeah,
it's a very oppressive let's say group of people, and they're stuck there.
yeah, and they are something called Daco Vale, which more or less means property. They are owned. They are not, their own persons. So they're also a form of slavery for them.
Yeah, and it is kind of sad. Meanwhile, Nynaeve and Kayla are being protected by an Aja who was sent there in order to investigate what was going on when these lands were being invaded. And what was very interesting is that they decide to tell this woman that Liandrin is serves the Dark One.
Yeah, yeah, they are, captured by their, uh, I recognized from the books because they are so bad at being inconspicuous when they are, you know, stay, looking at going through a strange place and so on, and they're captured by the Aes Sedai's warder and brought up
Yes.
to her. Yeah,
Yes. And
yeah,
they do stick out like a sore thumb. They just stick out. They can't,
yeah,
they're not street smart.
right,
They have no street smarts. I don't have street smarts, so I don't know how they feel. And they just, everything they do, everybody notices and has eyes on. And, they're very lucky to have been um, kind of captured and protected. However, they mentioned to this woman that they have to save Egwene, and they're not going to leave the city until they can save her. And really, the only way to kind of do it is to figure out how to use the tools that they use for the Dumani,
yeah,
for the Adam
yeah,
process. And
Yeah.
seeing them try to control it, it looks very dangerous. It's terrifying. Nynaeve is frightened of it. But they get interrupted because somehow they are discovered, not a surprise. And this Aja, this Aes Sedai, yeah, this brown Aja. Well,
She's of the yellow Aes Sedai, which are the
yellow.
healers, right?
Yes, she happens to sacrifice herself, and she gets collared as well, to save them, and it's quite tragic to see that battle
Yeah.
there. But we also learn,
But it was interesting to see how yellow Aes Sedai battles when breaking the bones because they know the anatomy so well instead of slinging fireballs.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was interesting to see what they used for their power. Um, but what was even more, and I know you were talking about the end of the episode of, I feel like I should, since we're talking about people who have who are Damani, I remember that Aes Sedai. She was in the tower
The
with
one at the
talking to Moraine.
the one at the end, yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I thought to myself, how did they get her?
yeah. They
It's
mentioned earlier that there were 3 Aes Sedai that came from the tower, blue Aes Sedai or the blue Aja. And two died and one was captured, I think. And she
yeah,
was the one that was captured.
and she's the one who told Moraine that they wanted to keep Moraine in the city. They were going to give her an appointment so that Moraine would have to stay there, like a desk
Yeah,
job, I guess.
yeah.
And Moraine really didn't like that. And I'm almost thinking maybe she should have taken the desk job.
Yeah.
But
She was going west to check out why all the ships were missing and all of that stuff.
right. And obviously we know what's happened to her. She has no way of telling anybody at the White Tower what's happened. Of course, Liandrin knows what's happening, but of course she's a Black Aja, so
Yeah,
so that's not ideal. Do
yeah.
you think? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no. We will end just this bit, and I go back to one thing.
Do you think that Nynaeve or I think it's Layla, or maybe it's Kayla, will figure out how to use the Dumani, the
Do, do
Adam?
you do you mean Elaine?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Well, we'll just have to, you know, Robert Jordan often said when he got questions like this that, read and find out. So I'll just have to say, watch and find out. You have to watch episode 7 to find out.
Yeah, and once again we see Rand. He's just walking in the neighborhood, and suddenly Land pops out. Land contacted the Amarylline and told her what was going on, and I guess he got permission to intercept Rand because he knows that Rand is the dragon. But
Yeah.
I don't get a good feeling about this. I don't think that they'll ever be able to um, fight or control Rand. And ironically, Rand pretty much is still being manipulated by Lanfear, when he pretty much confesses that he's going to do anything he can to see or save Egwene. And I think, can he? I'm almost wondering maybe he could do it because he's the dark, he's the dragon and is incredibly powerful. Maybe they don't have magic that can defeat him. He might be the one undefeatable character in the entire story. I mean, is he indefeatable by the Seanchan? Have the Seanchan ever had to come up across anybody like him? I'm wondering. So I think it would be quite a fun and exciting conclusion, although I doubt that it's going to happen that way, for Rand to go in there and just break Egwene's bonds, like using the dark power, and maybe everybody's, if he wanted to, totally break the Seanchan's hierarchy of how they control using the Damani idea, just obliviate it. And now all of a sudden their entire basis for power is gone. Those women are no longer in bondage, so no one can control them.
Yeah.
And it just goes cray cray, totally crazy.
Yeah, but something you should have in mind is that this is like, the first troops of the Seanchan. It's like, establishing a beachhead kind of thing. It's just the the forerunners, as they are called in the books. There will be possibly be more Seanchan in much bigger armies later on.
Absolutely. I think that it is very interesting to see what's going to happen. And these last few episodes were fantastic.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think I steered you away from something earlier when you started talking about Perrin.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, and I don't know if you want to bring that up because he meets Avienda uh,
yes.
i- in trying to free Uno from the not free but take his body and bury him or whatever. He meets Avienda, who's a caged Aiel. Um, it plays out similar to the books, but he doesn't meet Avienda. Perrin doesn't meet Avienda. He meets another Aiel called Gaul, but I think we'll see Gaul in a later season. But they want to introduce Avienda, and this was a good way to introduce her. And she is kind of capable a fighter. All the Aiel are capable fighters. They fight since they are 10 years old or whatever, and are always in. There's always fighting between the different clans in the Isle Waste, so they have been fighting since they were, children. And so when he tries to step in front of her to, be her protector, she's like, "Oh, I've been in fights for 10 years or whatever. Once a week we have a fight." Not really, but so yeah, so she's introduced, and she's from the Isle Waste, which they call the Threefold Land, and she's there because she's looking for the Kara Khan, which is the chief of chiefs, which is a play on the King of Kings. You
Oh,
know, so it's a leader to take them to the Promised Land or whatever. And
interesting.
who do you think the Kara Khan might be?
Perrin.
We'll see, perhaps.
I
Yeah,
hope it is because he's so nice. There isn't
yeah,
a bad bone in his body. He's maybe the sweetest character of
yeah,
all of them. And it almost, as I said, I really like his journey. I think that he is different, and it's almost like you have to embrace that character and accept what he is.
yeah,
I think he's an incredible character, and I love that character so much. And I
yeah.
didn't know I was going to like that character. At least let's say in the television show,
Right.
I'm terribly fond of that character. I think he's amazing, and his connection with the wolves, I guess his pack, is also very interesting. So
Yeah.
I didn't know he was going to become one of my favorites, but he certainly is. And I don't know how I feel about many of the Aja, to be honest with you. I'm not quite sure how I feel about a lot of them because they are somewhat more political than I had anticipated them being.
Yeah.
So you know,
I think we'll get into more of that in later seasons in case if they're depending on how many seasons there are, if they get to do the whole thing or if they I know they are doing season 3 now except for, the strike and everything, but we'll see how far they go in the
I
whole thing.
thought that the character that took over for Matt from season 1 did it, it was seamless. It seemed
Yeah, he's a good actor. He's a great. I would say that the actors in general has been very good.
yes.
uh,
It's
Acting wise. Then if someone has an issue with exactly, oh, it's not exactly how I saw them in my head when I read the books, that's another thing. But as uh, as just actors, I think they have done really good.
I agree. I also like how the woman who tells the future did warn Matthew why he shouldn't
Yeah,
go back to his friend Rand. And she was very clear. She
yeah,
says, "You will end up killing him and you need to stay away from him." And that's all the information you need. That's
yeah,
all the information you need. But it seems like fate's hand is forcing them to be in the same place. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering how, right now the person who has the dagger is Moraine,
Yeah.
right?
Just a small thing. No, Moraine doesn't have that dagger. Perrin Fane has that dagger.
I see.
Yeah. And Matt is not named Matthew. He he's called Matt, but his longer name is Matwin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did Padden Fane end up with a dagger? Because I thought that it was
We
I
haven't
thought
s- we haven't s- I think he has the dagger. It looks like he has the dagger at the end of season 1.
okay. Okay.
Uh, and the dagger doesn't do what the dagger is supposed to do, really. It's a bit weird that one of the things that I thought was a bit weird about the last episode of season 1. But it looks like he has the dagger. Moraine just has a normal dagger.
Oh.
So she offered Logain the dagger to give him a chance to kill himself.
See, that was not clear in the story
Right.
level. That
Because
was
he doesn't really want to live anymore. So she gave him a way out, so to speak. Or offered a way out.
right. That was not made clear that it was not the same dagger, but I shouldn't have assumed that it was the same one, which is fine. But I didn't know. I thought that was the same dagger that we were talking about.
But I can just say that in general, season 2 is leaps and bounds better than season 1. Season 1, okay, it has its ups and downs, but season 2 has been really strong for me so far.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fantastic, as I told you before, that I love the costumes from season 1 and 2, but I certainly I feel as if they did take it up a notch,
Yeah.
in intensity in this television series. The stakes are higher. We have even stronger bad guys who I know are not going to be repenting at the end of this.
Yeah.
They're not going to. Liandrin has been a baddie all this time. It's as if the organization is rotting from within. But I'm trying to figure out what can bring down the Seanchan. There must be some weakness. Whatever it is, I'm curious as to what it is. Do you happen to know what their weakness is,
Do,
Stubble?
do you know what I would answer to that? Watch and find out. So, but if there's one thing I would like to see more of, I love what they've done with the girls in the tower and all of that, but I would have liked to see more of Matt and Rand. And Rand has been a little bit, it's only been his relationship to Celine slash Lanfear, and I would have liked to see a little bit more from him, and but I liked the things we've gotten from all the others, but I would have liked to see a little bit more from them.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. For someone to be the dragon, to be so powerful, you would expect much more a development there, from his scenes, and we haven't seen that for whatever reason. Hopefully, we still have 2 episodes left. Maybe those will be more Rand rich, going.
I can tell you, I look forward to what Matt is going to do in probably episode 8.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, because you think,
I won't say anything more than that, other than perhaps it will involve Uno.
huh? Okay,
Perhaps.
all right.
And if you know, you know. And if you don't know, you don't know.
Absolutely, Stubble. Final thoughts on these last 3 episodes, of the Wheel of Time.
I would say that episode 5 and 6 have been the strongest of the season for me. And I think episode 6 was the strongest so far. And episode 4 was solid, as the rest of the episodes have been. There's been nitpicks I've had about certain things, but I'm pretty happy with how the season 2 has turned out.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Stubble. I am very happy with the way the season turned out, and I do like the length of the episodes. I like what's going on. I'm seeing things that are shocking me. So I think anytime a show, a television show or movie can kind of shock you or or have that emotional response, it's good. This has been certainly an eye opener when it comes to what's happening in this world. And I think that there's a lot more that can go on. I can't wait to see what's happening in the next 2 episodes. So I'm just can't. I'm excited. We have what is it, next week and the week after? Stubble and I will be returning in 2 weeks
Yeah.
to review the finale, the last
Seven and eight.
7 and 8 of the Wheel of Time, here on the network, and the Burnettwork, and Positive Fandom. And Stubble, I want to thank you for joining me in doing this review. Stubble, where can people find you?
Well, I'm not, on the internet, or I'm on the internet, but I'm not on the YouTube thing except for here. But you can find me on Twitter. I won't call it X. At TOMP115. So yeah.
Excellent, Stubble. Thank you so much. And guys out there, you can find me right here on Positive Fandom, or on my own YouTube channel. Excuse me, actually on the Burnettwork, or on my YouTube channel, Positive Fandom. You can find me on both channels. So thank you everybody for your support. It's been such a pleasure and so much fun reviewing and watching the Wheel of Time season 2. Stubble and I will return in 2 weeks to as we said, review episode 7 and 8, and we look forward to seeing you all there.
And episode 5 and 6 have been really meaty, good episodes.
They are the best ones so far, and I've loved them. And I would, although I just watched it for the 3rd time, I'm going to go back and watch it again. So certainly, guys, do check it out. And thank you everybody for the support, guys. And remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody.